Hear that? Yeah, that's the sound of you relaxing, because now you're managing diabetes with the Freestyle Libre 3 system. You get to know your glucose levels and where it's headed. Manage your diabetes with more confidence with the Freestyle Libre 3 system. Ready to learn more about the #1 prescribed CGM in the U.S.? Visit freestylelibre.us to learn more. Based on retail sales data for patients' last full prescription by manufacturer. Refer to the FLAIR NL4 study published in BMJ Open Diabetes Research and Care 2019. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Sergeant and Mrs. Smith, you're going to love this house.
Is that a tub in the kitchen?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Greatness hurts. It's 10,000 hours of hard work, sweat, and setbacks. The aches, the stumbles, the falls. Tylenol provides pain relief for the champion in us all. It's the #1 doctor-recommended brand of pain relief and fever reduction. This summer, when greatness hurts, Tylenol will be there with care to help you keep chasing it. That's Tylenol. That's care without limits. Visit Tylenol.com/greatness-hurts to learn more. Use as directed.
January 15th, 1967, Los Angeles, California. That's the sound of 63,000 fans at the LA Coliseum roaring through your TV screen. It's the championship game between America's 2 professional football leagues to determine who will be named the ultimate victor of the season. It's the NFL's Green Bay Packers versus the AFL's Kansas City Chiefs, the first ever meeting between the 2 best teams in each league. NBC's announcers call the opening plays. The Packers lead in the first quarter after future Hall of Fame quarterback Bart Starr nails a 37-yard pass to Max McGee for a touchdown.
Although he had caught only 4 passes during the entire NFL season, on this vital afternoon, McGee caught 7 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. He demoralized the Kansas City secondary.
The pressure is on. There's a competitive rivalry between the leagues, which has drawn a lot of attention to this game, and $15,000 per person is on the line for the winning team, which is the equivalent to about $143,000 today. In fact, Chiefs-Packers isn't the only competition on air this afternoon. The broadcasting companies themselves have been fighting for the TV rights of this game. In the end, CBS and NBC agreed to air the game simultaneously, paying $1 million each, equivalent to $9.5 million today.
Ready for a meal now that the game is over? Hurry over to one of the more than 900 McDonald's, now serving family communities from coast to coast.
In 1967, CBS charged $42,500 and NBC charged $35,000 for a 30-second Super Bowl commercial. It's a relatively small number compared to what we know it'll be later, but it reaches the roughly 51 million people glued to the TV screens. By halftime, we get quite a spectacle, with university marching bands, 300 pigeons, and even a man flying around in a jetpack. It sets a high expectation for championship halftime shows, and we know how wild future shows will become. The game charges on, and as most people expected, the Packers win, 35-10.
For the first time in 7 years, Vince Lombardi's Packers, 35-10 victors over Kansas City, can claim an indisputable world championship.
This exciting game is only the first in a long line of what will soon be known as the Super Bowl, the annual championship game in the NFL, which was birthed from the merging of the 2 competing leagues. The audience size and financial gain will only grow year after year as football becomes America's most valuable and watched sport, with viewership far exceeding that of baseball or basketball. This is only part of an NFL story that traces back decades, and it begins with so many failures that it's kind of a wonder that the NFL has made it this far after all. Hi everyone, it's Kavitha Davidson, and welcome to another episode of Sportly. Every week, we dive into sports history, spotlighting iconic events, remarkable athletes, and uncovering the lesser-known yet still impactful moments both on and off the field. And football season is here. The first NFL game kicked off earlier this month in September. It never fails to fascinate me just how much value the NFL has in American society. Last year, NFL games during the regular season averaged 17.9 million viewers, and nearly 125 million people tune into the Super Bowl. When you combine ticket sales with TV streaming rights, ad placements, and sponsorship, you can imagine just how much the league makes each game and each year. The NFL generates $13 billion in annual revenue and has set a revenue target of $25 billion by 2027. These numbers aren't crazy when you really stop to think about it. The value of teams themselves reflects this. The average NFL team is valued at $5 to $6 billion, with the Dallas Cowboys ranked as the most valuable professional sports team in America at around $10 billion. And NFL teams are the most valuable out of all the pro sports leagues in the country. By comparison, MLB teams are valued at around $2.3 billion, half the average NFL team. It's hard to think about just how much money that is. And now, value continues to grow. The NFL has been described as sports' most exclusive owners club. Historically, it's been the territory of rich individuals, their friends, and their families. Due to skyrocketing growth, the NFL recently opened the doors to private equity, a reflection of just how valuable these teams have become and how expensive the entry point is into NFL ownership. So the NFL is thriving today, but it hasn't always been that way. What you might not know is that the NFL was once seen as the lesser cousin of college football, struggling with financial issues and disengaged fans. It's taken a lot for the NFL to sell out stadiums, host incredibly popular Super Bowls, and attract billions of dollars. So how did the NFL transform from an underdog into the multi-billion-dollar powerhouse it is today? Well, we're going to dive into this in a two-part series. In today's first episode, we'll talk about the very early history of the NFL and the founding of its first teams, most of which are no longer around. In part 2 next week, we'll go into the modern history of the league and how pro football evolved into the king of American sports we know it as today.
Introducing our biggest GMC Acadia ever. Offering bigger screens, bigger views, and even bigger journeys. Live your biggest life in the all-new GMC Acadia.
It's been a 3-year wait, but the Olympics are back, and the CBS Sports Podcast Network has you covered with everything happening in Paris. It's a new era for the U.S. women's national team, and Attacking Third will tackle all the women's soccer action. First Cut will keep close tabs on golf, while Beyond the Arc will follow the U.S. men's basketball team on a quest for another gold. And We Need to Talk Now will provide comprehensive coverage of women's athletes at the Olympic Games. Follow and listen to all CBS Sports podcasts for free on the Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcasts.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Let's take it back to 1919. Imagine walking into work on a Monday morning and finding out that your boss, Augustus E. Staley, has just announced his latest great idea. He's starting a company-wide football team. Well, that's exactly what happens at the A.E. Staley Manufacturing Company, a starch manufacturer in Decatur, Illinois. Staley, the company's founder and owner, is a huge sports fan. He believes that a company sports team will foster stronger loyalty, build character, encourage competition, and promote teamwork among his workers, all beneficial for productivity. Plus, it keeps his employees entertained. Now, it's not entirely an outlandish thought. Around this time, a lot of companies, especially in the industrial Midwest, including Columbus, Ohio, and Green Bay, Wisconsin, are doing the exact same thing. Back then, fielding a sports team served as a status symbol of sorts for businessmen, allowing them to flaunt their wealth and expand their influence. So Staley names the team the Decatur Staleys. Again, they're a walking advertisement. And the local newspaper announces that Staley invests $1,000 into the team's creation, which is about $19,000 today. There's something especially striking about that number. Football was not a big moneymaker at the time. In fact, the big moneymaker is college football, especially from powerhouse teams like Harvard and Notre Dame. At the time, college was selling a whole lot more tickets than pro football. But for Staley, it's not really about the money. He's got plenty of that. After selecting the roster and holding a few practices, the team holds their first game. It's against the Arcola Independents, another Illinois-based team. When the Staleys win with an astounding 41-0 score, the businessmen of Arcola are humiliated by the loss. They demand a rematch, which Staley and the Decaturs accept. In the meantime, Arcola dives into a full-on redemption arc, stacking their team with stronger players, many of whom are college athletes. They're determined to turn their previous defeat into a comeback story. When Staley hears the news of the stronger team, he backs out. After such a resounding win the first time around, he's not really eager to risk making a fool of himself or his team. He only stands to lose. But Staley isn't one to do anything halfway. So while he withdraws from the rematch, he also builds up his own team to ensure a firm victory in future games. Not long after, in 1920, Staley hires a man named George Halas, who was a standout college football player at the University of Illinois. Halas appears to be just the person Staley needs to recruit players for his company team. That summer, Halas recruits several players for Staley, including former University of Illinois teammates, forming a team that he believes can rival those of neighboring towns and pack the stadiums. Fast forward a few months later, Coach Halas arrives at the showroom of an automobile dealership in Canton, Ohio. He's not there to buy a car. The owner of the dealership is Ralph Hay, owner of the Canton Bulldogs football team. Hay has called reps from 13 other pro football clubs here to convene. Although they've been around for a while now, these aren't teams the average 21st century ear would recognize. The Hammond Pros, the Massillon Tigers, the Muncie Flyers, these are all teams founded by businessmen just like Staley, and most of them would become defunct by the end of the decade. The purpose of this gathering is to address a major issue in the Pro Football League. The constant bidding wars between owners for valuable players is draining their pockets. Ralph Hay believes that forming an organized organization would solve this issue. It would establish a set of agreed-upon rules, providing team owners with more control over their money, their players, and their schedules. So, leaning against display cars on the showroom floor, these men create the American Professional Football Association, which would later be known as the NFL.
Earning your degree online doesn't mean you have to go about it alone. At Capella University, we're here to support you when you're ready. From enrollment counselors who get to know you and your goals, to academic coaches who can help you form a plan to stay on track. We care about your success and are dedicated to helping you pursue your goals. Going back to school is a big step, but having support at every step of your academic journey can make a big difference. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
The association's inaugural season is a dud thanks to a tight budget, no established guidelines, and very low popularity by fans and the press. There's no official championship that year, and the league winners are heavily disputed. But the Decatur Staleys fare pretty well. With 10 victories, 2 ties, and just 1 loss, they are one of the league's strongest teams. So it's with this newfound success that Hallis and Staley, still the owner, start thinking about the potential to grow the team beyond its small-town glory. Growth, obviously, equals money. Now, Staley recognizes that Decatur, Illinois, just isn't a city built to accommodate a large team. The Staley's home field only accommodates 2,500 fans, and with ticket prices at $1.50 for Staley employees, that's not much revenue. But if they could play their games in bigger cities, that might attract big city crowds, and big city crowds draw in big city money. So at the start of the 1921 season, Staley transfers ownership to Coach Hallis, who relocates the team to Chicago, rebranding them as the Chicago Staleys. The next year, the Staleys rebrand themselves and become the beloved Chicago Bears that we know them as today. The Bears aim for new heights, striving to draw larger crowds and boost ticket sales as the Pro Football Association, now rebranded as the National Football League, seeks its own growth and stability. In its early years, the NFL faces a tumultuous journey. Teams pop up in various cities only to vanish after a few seasons. From 1920 to 1930, 46 teams come and go. And most often, it's because many of these early NFL teams simply don't have the finances to pay their players and coaches. Amid these growing pains, Coach Hallis, who wears multiple hats as the Bears' owner, coach, player, GM, financial administrator, he remains fiercely dedicated to his team. The team is quickly shaping up to be one of the most successful so far. They're crowned champions in the league's second season and again in 1924, a victory that, despite some dispute, leads them to proudly declare themselves world champions on their team photo. But despite the Bears' success, pro football struggles to attract a large and consistent audience. Even the Bears, averaging around 8,000 fans a game, can't come close to the 40,000 or more who crowd the stadiums for college games. So pro football is still trying to find its footing. That is until Hallis recruits the NFL's first superstar.
Football history on rain-soaked Franklin Field, Philadelphia. Red Grange defeats Pennsylvania. The ball carrier in these rare scenes is the galloping ghost himself. In this, his first appearance in the East, Red piles up 363 out of a total of 450 yards for Illinois.
Harold Grange, nicknamed Red for his fiery wave of red hair, is incredibly talented and popular in college football at the University of Illinois. For his speed on the field, he's heralded as the galloping ghost. He can dodge tackles and score touchdowns. In one game in 1924 against the University of Michigan, he raced across 262 yards in just 12 minutes, scoring 4 touchdowns in that span. His dynamic performances capture national attention, culminating in his appearance on the cover of Time magazine in October of 1925. Despite the interest from numerous pro teams, Coach Hallis secures a deal with Red. This move disappoints Red's Illinois coaches, who see him leave the school to join the professional ranks. Now, Red is pretty savvy. He's got an agent to work out his playing agreements, making him the first football player to do so. And he was also the first professional athlete in a team sport whose pay was connected to the number of people in the audience. And as we'll soon see, people show up and show out for their favorite college athlete. The first game that Red plays is Thanksgiving Day 1925, just 10 days after his last college game. And it attracts more than 36,000 people to Cubs Park, now known as Wrigley Field. They play the Chicago Cardinals, and despite Red's bang-up performance, as one newspaper says, the game ends in a tie. Only 10 days later, A record 70,000 people pack New York's Polo Grounds to see Red and the Bears take on the New York Giants.
And that went throughout the country. And we played New York, and we had 75,000 people, 10,000 more than the Army Navy did the week before. So that gave you an idea of what a great drawing card Red Grange.
Now, the Giants are a new team, part of the NFL's attempt at drawing big city crowds, but so far they've only been draining the team owners' pockets. The Bears win, but even though the Giants lose, the revenue from 70,000 people is enough to save the Giants from financial collapse. These games are only the first few in a series of 19 across the next 67 days, what Halas calls the barnstorming tour. And it's because of this grueling yet savvy schedule, at a time when the average player is making about $100 a game, which is about $2,000 today, Red Grange earns $100,000 during the 2-month tour, equivalent to almost $2 million in 2024. Red Grange's financial success helps legitimize pro football, and he's a big reason why the NFL starts picking up momentum. With Red, the league realizes, wait, maybe this pro football thing has the potential to really become something big. First, the NFL starts raising the criteria to found a team. You can't just be any random tiny city and start up an NFL club anymore. Rather, the focus shifts toward bigger cities with bigger stadiums and bigger crowds. This helps the league push through the Great Depression, despite severe financial plunges that caused several teams to collapse. The remaining teams must manage any way they can. Halas, for instance, who had stepped away from coaching, returns to lead his team to remove the financial burden of a head coach salary. The Green Bay Packers are from a small Wisconsin town, but they're community-owned, which means broad support rather than hefty investment from a few individuals. It's this model that pulls this small-town team through the Depression. But the NFL is no stranger to financial hardship at this point, and they recover with a bang. In 1933, the NFL holds its first championship game between the Bears and the Giants to declare an official winner of the season. 21,000 fans pay to watch, with hundreds more eagerly hopping the fence. In the end, each of the winning Bears receives $300, equivalent to $7,000 today. More teams join the league and evolve during this decade. The Boston Braves will become the Washington Commanders. The Portsmouth Spartans will become the Detroit Lions. And they say that Art Rooney, founder of the Pittsburgh Pirates, scored a lucky bet at the racetracks and uses his earnings to fund his team. This team would prove very successful, and one day they'd become the Pittsburgh Steelers. The early history of pro football demonstrates just how nebulous the business of professional sports was in the early 20th century. We often forget that these billion-dollar businesses were built on shaky grounds. A lot of people lost a lot of money trying to break into pro football, and it would take decades for the league to reach profitability. Those ensuing decades would see a ton of trial and error, innovative media and business strategies, not to mention good faith investment and quite a bit of government subsidy. We'll explore those decades in part 2 of our series next week. Thanks so much for listening to Sportly. Sportly is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan and Shay Yu. This episode was written by Michaela Struther and Shay Yu. Our sound designer and editor is Paroma Chakravarti. Our theme music was created by Simon Hutchinson. Other music by Epidemic Sound. Tune in next week and every week after for more Sportly.